Elie and I first met at the Rabbinical Assembly Convention in Los Angeles about 20 years ago. As some of you may know, I was the founder and publisher of Jewish Lights Publishing that ended up having the pleasure and privilege of publishing all of Elie's books. He came to ask me a lot of questions about being an author and publishing. And I had to stop him because at the time, I was having these strange pains from the back of my head to the front of my head. Turned out to be nothing major. And I had to warn people that I wasn't reacting to what you were saying. It was something going on in my head. And he immediately said, well, my wife is a neurologist and she's here with me in the book exhibition area. I'll go get her. And before I could say, of course, don't bother, he was gone and returned with Linda. And there in the book exhibition area in the convention center, Linda conducted a basic neurological exam, walking one foot in front of the other, and putting a finger on your nose with your eyes closed. And she said, I think it's not major, but you should see a neurologist when you get back home. And then that wasn't enough. So she got in touch with a neurologist she knew at my local medical center and put the two of us together. So my first encounter with Elie and with Linda told me a few things about them. Inquiring mind, always learning and exploring new things, but particularly very caring and giving, and a person of action. Years later, he sent me the manuscript for Does the Soul Survive, as it was finally titled. A most daring and fascinating book about a subject that isn't often talked about, more so now, but not then. As some of you may know, each year before the High Holy Days, rabbis gather together to talk about sermon preparation ideas. And Elie was one of the speakers at the group that got together in Southern California. And among other things, he talked about, does the soul survive? And I remember him calling me afterwards and saying, it was really interesting. I didn't know what kind of reaction to expect, but after we were done, about a third of my colleagues came up to me afterwards and said, oh, what a relief that somebody talked about this. I thought I was the only one who had these kinds of experiences. And what did it tell me? It told me he wasn't afraid to share his odd experiences in order to help others. Caring and giving, acting, and exploring new ideas. And that caring and giving and exploring was reflected in his other books and in our dozens of conversations in person and long distance over the next 15 or so years. And I was given the gift of working with him and of his friendship and teaching. So my blessing for Elie is, may the caring and giving that you have so kindly and generously sent out into the world, and for the last 35 years to your congregants, come back many-fold to reward you. May your exploring never stop and be graced with new discoveries for many years. And may this next stage of your life be a time of wholeness, shalom, for you and Linda, as you both so richly deserve. Antoinette and I send our love.
Stuart Matlins the publisher of Jewish Lights, is larger than life to me. And I'm deeply honored to say a few words about him and his wife, Antoinette, who is also dear to me. And I'm delighted that he honored Linda in his words as well. Stuart was a Fortune 500 public relations executive. His wife, Antoinette, was a major expert on gemstones and wrote a book on gemstones that Crown Publishing published as a coffee table book. And when she wanted to revise it, Crown said to her, "It's fine the way it is." So he bought the rights to that book, and she re-edited it. He printed it and took it to Tucson, where in February was at that time the world's largest gathering of gemstone dealers. And he had a cart, like a hot dog cart, where he had all her books, selling them. And he did it because he's this kind of like take charge, public relations, I can do this kind of person. And he, at that time, was on the board of the Reform Movement, on its council. And he was sitting next to Rabbi Larry Kushner. And he told him the story of the gem book he had published. And Larry Kushner said to Stuart, "I have some books out of print. Maybe you could print some of my books." To which Stuart said, "I'm not a publisher." He said, "You just told me you published your wife's book." And so his first Jewish book, Stuart's, was called Honey from the Rock by Larry Kushner, Rabbi Kushner of Sudbury, Mass. He would, as years went by, Larry would say to him, "I have a book I've designed on my computer about the alphabet, a new book." At this point, Stuart had published a number of out-of-print books. And Larry said, "I have a new book that I would like to print the way I've laid it out graphically." Stuart said, "But I don't do new books. I just do out-of-print books." Larry said, "No, it's okay. I'll help. We'll do it." Fast forward, Jewish Lights became the most impactful publisher of Jewish books in America over 20 years, with a portfolio of who's who in the Jewish world across denominations, of selling books in the millions, before he decided about 5 so years ago to sell his company. In sum, Stuart Matlins encouraged me and many of my other colleagues to write with the possibility of it getting published. I was fortunate to work not just with Stuart, but with a team of people, most who were not Jewish, in Woodstock, Vermont. I would visit them, and Stuart in Woodstock, Vermont, he had this team of these extraordinary, talented young people who were his team of editors, of designers, of printers, who were the backbone for Jewish education in America for 20 years. He, Stuart Matlins, is larger than life. He changed my life because the 3 books that I published, particularly the first of the 3, Does the Soul Survive?, have been my ticket to teaching and speaking around the world in these intervening years. Stuart and Antoinette, you are a powerful team, and more, you are beloved friends for Linda, for me, and for our children too. May God bless you with many, many more years of health and of sharing your presence, because your presence shines so brightly. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Amen.